Mic check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Can y'all hear me? Can y'all hear me? Hey yo, can y'all hear me? Hey yo, can y'all hear me? Mic check, 1, 2, 3, cool. YouTube. Where y'all at in the chat? Okay, let's get it. What is going on? Oh, this is so funny. I was talking to my phone just for attention, Okay, the goal for this stream, play game, whatever, is 1 subscribe. I have a couple already, but funny enough, that don't matter. They don't give a shit about my shit. So I need to get new people. Shit. But yeah, man, we are here. We are here. So the objective is going from season 3, as you can see. I'm currently at 12,000 trophies, trying to reach season 4. It's no pay account, which is crazy because like literally to get anywhere now you gotta freaking pay. Like look at the prices on this fucking game, guys, for gold, and that's not even a lot. 100 rand. I'm not even gonna talk about the past, but let's get to it. So I use usually 3 elixirs, and they work pretty fine as long as you spend the right cards at the right time. And sometimes you get assholes that just start off with a giant elixir card that is really hard to defend. So all we wanna do is attack the other side, mix it up, and get some more damage. But most of it it's more for like you know when you have a name that when you have a nickname that is so tough that it becomes like type of card. But it's very good at because as you can see, this guy's always spamming his people. You see what I mean about this game? All they do is just get a freaking card, spam it 2 times, just gonna say, you know the people won't do I play Brawl Stars, not often, but I do play it as well. So if you want more of that, I can give it to you, don't worry. I've got you. I wonder how actual streamers get to do this every single day. Because like it's a bit, I don't know, it's so vague, it's so hard talking to the phone for hours and hours, you know. What other people from other places are thinking, getting people's attention online. Maybe there's more now, if it was me and I was watching someone, honestly, I'll be like, okay, this nigga goofy, you know? Why you talking about that? I don't think I even have the person on like this okay, relax. Imagine if someone catches me talking to a phone. It will be like, this guy is on some other kind of drugs. Not spammers, they are high elixir users, like people who use picker, buildings are super annoying. What they do is really put them in distance so that you can't attack them. Other people are, so you know those cards, they like a combo. giant goblin. Hit us, like the previous player on this phase. Yeah, he has a pretty good combo. It's just that it's super annoying. I outside.
Out of my way!
You might be wondering, okay, when is this guy winning? This guy's only been so that a person can be great. Can lose 100 games. And he's still trying.
Out of my way!
When they scream.
The goal for how many minutes? Probably 120. The record for me. I usually stop Oh, let me do a bit of reacting. So, lately I've been trying to find the right but you need some optimal stages. Then you can always follow it to the next game. Baton. I want to reach that point. I'm watching my own stuff and I'm entertaining myself, you know? That'll be not even possible. Oh, okay, I'm facing a lifestyle here. I'm facing a lifestyle. if you have money to invest, what would you invest on? There's so many options. You got crypto, but I don't even like alcohol. Just for myself, of like subject to a lot of honesty. Yeah, only know in the comments section what type of stuff destroy this single person. So 3% for that nigga overruled. He's also a starting user, brother. He's also a baby girl. Ange, Ange, Ange. Baby girl. اشوف do not overcommit. Chill the fuck out.
Out of my way!
I don't have to defend. Stay safe. And go for the fast power. The 6 on 9.
Out of my way! Out of my way!
missile.
Out of my way!
Let's make this quick. Let's steal the show. Too slow.
E-Wiz, E-Column, E.
Let's go.
Okay, let's see if we're gonna get a touch. Nope. No. She thinks he might get a touch when he hits that. Which he will. Crazy. I'll probably be filling it like 500 songs, I guess. Just getting closer. He won't get a single shot. Maybe at like the last 4 seconds. Next thing I'm gonna do is on my titles, I'm just gonna spend 3 giveaways, bro. See how that goes. Okay, I can't do Yeah, I want that.
Standing applause right now.
He's the GOAT, man.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
This guy's one of the dudes who put me on to you. Put me on to you, so I figured it was right that we have him on hand while we have this conversation. But it is truly an honor to speak to somebody who's making a splash in such a unique way.
Oh, appreciate it. Yeah, it's a splash. I would say that. splash. I will say that.
So give me a little bit of the history of Kevin Samuels and what you might have done through your life and how you actually ended up kind of arriving upon the format that has given you so much success of late.
So, my background is like a lot of people. Found out that, acting. From women, and are you going to do that, or if not, at least now you know how to disconnect it. So that's about as simple as I can put it.
Interesting, yeah, because that's one thing that I ended up saying to one of my employees over there. I was like, I like Kevin Samuels because he just gets crispy every day. I don't really feel like I have that much of an incentive to present myself in that way, but certainly for you to garner the respect of these random people who are calling in and stuff, it very much helps to accentuate your brand. And you're talking about that like you've always sort of had a bit of understanding of sort of dressing for what you want to accomplish, right?
Well, coming from corporate sales, the first thing they buy is you. So when you come through the door, and I'm talking about a multi-million-dollar deal or even several thousands of dollars, your image does play a part in it. And I spent a lot of time, money, and investment in getting coaching. I did the same thing. I tell people to do because there's a difference between, let's just say insurance. Somebody works at a local state farm, farmer's market. There's going to be somebody up there who's making $500,000 and somebody making 30 or 50. They're selling the same products in the same market. What's the difference? Network and appearance. So I've always known that for meme's sake. I reflect what I get from people. So people who watch my show, I just remember back. And there are times when I'm sitting there talking to somebody who may come in as a little asthma, and so, she's in tears going back to her house. I'm sitting there talking to somebody. And really, it's about staying comfortable. But I'm like, cool, be comfortable. But just be comfortable with your outcomes. Don't complain about it. Right. You're making a C. I'm good with C's. But don't want A outcomes. Right. Because we should have the quality of opportunity, but not the quality of outcomes.
Definitely. So that's the one thing that I keep coming back to from watching these conversations that you have with people is it seems like a lot of the women in particular that I see you talking to, they just sort of have like a contrived image of
Out of my way!
This outcome, which is massively unrealistic. You want a man that's making at least 60, that's only 10% of the population, 15%. And coming from Oklahoma, the Bible Belt, factory worker family, military family, I'm like, yeah, I fit in this category. You don't sell a piano to a middle class person. You sell a music.
And they realize that even the women that they perceive as being on their approximate level of value are quite often not interested with any guy who's sort of near the lower end of the spectrum.
I spent the better part of a year and a half talking to guys about incels. They were labeled incels, but they don't want to be. They want women. They can't get them because women aren't paying any attention. And see, those guys got mischaracterized as I know guys who are 40 years old making $160,000 as software engineers, who decent looking guys, but they have no real social skills, so they're not being prioritized because it keeps getting pushed to the margins, the margins of of men. And so I started off talking originally to men. my clients who are in image, and then I also started talking. I started realizing I had an influx of these incel guys, and I thought that they were guys who were economically unattractive. That's the new word. No, these guys are solid middle class or upper middle class. I'm like, so what the hell's going on? Does everyone have to? Want a guy, now you're discriminating where his money comes from?
Right.
It's insane, and that's what this show is starting to highlight, starting to break apart a lot of delusion. Because when you feed an appetite, it's no different than drugs. We give you a few hits for free, and then now you're going to buy it. They've been sold on this idea that you don't want a high value man, which is 6 different things, it's not just money. What you really want is this lifestyle. Then I asked, well, what do you bring to the table, and what kind of relationship skills, and what do you, who's going to get? That's where the crickets happen. So now it's really started a conversation that's much needed. We have gotten to the point to where, for the most part, we don't even know how to relate to one another. We know how to swipe left, swipe right, hook up.
Right, it's like the idea of two people who are at a relatively early stage in their career. When I think about my mom and dad, met in college, they probably didn't have jobs or had bad jobs, and that was the dream. When I talked to my parents about what they wanted out of life when they were in the early 20s, if they wanted to get married, get a house, have a couple of kids, work on their careers, and build a life together. And they did, and they've been together for 50 fucking years. And it's like, that's a beautiful thing, but it seems like that dream has kind of been lost along the way, where people got so overwhelmed with choice and so overwhelmed with climbing the social ladder and trying to have the best mate that they possibly can, that the idea of building something with their partner is sort of vanished.
Social media, man. It's like now, every young girl that's coming up, they're looking at everybody's Instagram every day. They've seen everybody with the nice purses. Like, I have a homeboy who gets depressed. Like, when he watches other people's Instagram, I can post a picture and he's like, man, my day is messed up. How's your day messed up? Because somebody else, you know, people spend their money and go their whole life trying to fit in with everybody else when they're not even in the same tax brackets and have the same social status and stuff.
See, what I try to do is, I don't judge what people want. I just ask, are you really cut out for that? Or do you really want that? Because, you know, we talk about this, social media has definitely, you know, thrown fuel on the fire, where you're saying that used to be the American dream. Now, we're talking about women right now. Women they want the outcome, but they don't want the work. And I'm saying, okay, well, at what point do men start making this 6 figures? You know that's a 45 to 55, right? So you're 22. You want a man in it? Oh, now you want him to be young and in the top 10%. And so it's like to the point to where they're starting to sit back and say, you know what? This is unrealistic and it's unsustainable, because most people aren't there. And even if you do can get there from a look standpoint, there's only one. And what are you going to do to get it? So it's a much needed conversation, because, look, even the guys that are up there, they're just normal guys too. I'm like, you do realize their breast stinks in the morning. They have bad habits. You know, driven, motivated guys. You think they're going to be at home to go to the PTA meeting? They're working 12, 14, 16-hour days. You know, being a high-value man's wife is a lonely life. And you got to, not lonely, but you're not going to have everything. And that's, I think, what's happened. We've told everybody you can have everything. You can be whatever you want, and there's no limit. So now you have people thinking they can have it all when they're average. And then that leads to frustration and depression. When your expectation doesn't line up with reality, people get frustrated. Then you got guys who, you know, hearing these women saying, I couldn't date a guy making 50,000. Like, that's an insult. Like, half of the men in this country make 50,000. That's the median income. So I'm like, so what are we ultimately saying to people? That the only way you're worth anything is if you're over here. Okay, well, are you planning on sharing these guys? I mean, what are you planning on doing?
Right.
And so now it's starting. Now it's what it's starting to do is it's starting to make this conversation front and center, because before it was just a one-way conversation, and finally men are starting. What men want is being heard, because if you were to say what's on your mind, or you would say what's on your mind, it's toxic. It's narcissist. I get called at here. Narcissist, misogynistic, all these different things. And last night I did a broadcast about alpha females and beta males, and I was like, when a woman says I'm strong, independent, don't need a man, I need this, I'm like, she can be direct like she wants to, but if you do it, you're demanding, you're this, and I'm like, well, he who makes the goal rules. So, all right, you're accepted over here, accepted over here. And what we're really starting to see is the hypocrisies. And that's what happens in my show. I just question people and I just let the public decide, what do you think? And now more people are saying, you know what? Maybe I do need to get some therapy. Maybe I need to really, because I push that heavily. Need therapy. And then I think we all can need therapy, whether you come from a trouble background or whether you're A-OK, it's maintenance. And then understanding that life is about people. Success is shared, and making money is a social activity. If you want to get something out of somebody, how useful are you to somebody else? Because at the end of the day, you got your PhD and this and that. And you look to the right and you look to the left of you. When the pandemic hit and we were on lockdown, and you were there by yourself. That was the reality check. Now people are starting to realize, you know what? I may want somebody to walk through this life with me, so somebody can chronicle my life. So when I finally do die, somebody can tell the people who are there with that hash mark in between born date and death date. You don't have anybody next to you. It's almost like you weren't here.
Life is a lot less meaningful if you don't have somebody that you can partner with along the way. I mean, some of us figure that out when we're 20, and some people figure it out it takes later into life. But I feel like your show is a consistent showcase of people that figured out too late in life what they wanted to have that. And, it occurs to me, I remember when I was like 20, 21, I realized all the young girls I know, all the 18, 19, 20-year-old girls are really, really concerned with being with a guy who's got cool tattoos, cool clothes, cool jewelry, whatever. And then when I looked at the older end of the spectrum of the girls I knew at the time, or 28, 29, I started to notice them being more interested in guys with careers that could take care of them, etc. It occurs to me when I see a lot of the women on your show, they end up trapped in that 20-year-old mentality for way too long, and then they might break out of it at 35 and realize, like, fuck, it would have been better if I had been building something along the way.
And that's the one thing I tell women all the time is that I watch this shit down there every day. I've yet to hear a woman call in and say, I just want love. You know what I mean? It's just like, and I've heard you say, like, there's nothing wrong with dating the plumber. You may be in love with the plumber, but because you don't want to walk or go anywhere with the plumber and stuff like that, you know what I mean? It's just the expectation. It pisses me off too. Like, what's the problem with just wanting love? You can meet somebody that work at Petco. That could be the guy of your dreams, but he work at Petco. You don't want to bring him home to your mama. They're going to laugh at you and shit. It's just crazy.
Well, and that's why I have things on coming from my sales background. You want to close a deal, you don't give people 15 proposals, you give them 2. And you keep the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid. You make it to where tagline, I'm a PhD, that has its own meaning. The danger zone, 27 to 35. If you want a family and kids, you need to focus like a laser right here, because if you make it to 35, you cross into 36 to 60, no man's land. And more women have started to realize that, you know what? I never thought of it this way. I thought that I could just go out and live my Sex and the City life, and at 30-some-odd years old, I could just turn around and pick a man off the tree and run off. And no, you can't.
And they think they're going to have the same selection they had when they were 24 or whatever.
I did an Instagram, because I get a little bit more raw on Instagram. And on Instagram, I was like, you better put a price on it. Better put a price on it. How much would it cost? I'm like, wait till I look. But I'm like, and one woman said she thought that she should have the same value on her lady parts at 35 and she did a 25. I'm like, are you what? It's got 10 more years of mileage on it. What are you talking about?
Any product that just becomes more valuable with time.
But see, the thing is, because see, I'm 51, so I'm in Generation X. We got a lot of bad information. So from 40 to 55, man, that worldwide in Western countries, it's a bad deal. In Japan and Korea, they got a thing where people are dying alone. Is it called Kodokoshi?
Right.
You know how they know? They find you decomposing on your futon. Countries are not set up for single people into their elder years. I'm sorry. Men, we were going off into the woods and dying alone. We at least had that dignity. Women are going to take their service. We call them hermits, we call them weirdos, homeless, and we just step right over them. In New York City, homeless women, there's nothing more vulnerable than a homeless woman. And so you don't have an infinite supply of money to fund people who've chosen, middling careers, because most people have jobs, not careers. And I just talk straight common sense that we all know, but we've gotten so far out of reality. It's like, all right, look, man, you probably had a suitable man at 22 years old. You were together 2 years. It always happens. You broke out off for some reason. You likely blew that. You blew it. All right, now you're 40. Just go make a deal. Go make a deal. I'll just give you your insulin shot if you change and you do my dentures. And we'll just figure this stuff out better. Because you're not going to get love like you did at 20 in your early 20s. What you need is respect and companionship and somebody who's going to be there. And other stuff can come once you know you have somebody there. And I witnessed my mother do this. She got married at 50. But I also witnessed my aunts. One died alone, the other's on the way. So this is personal for me too, especially when we talk about turning down the plumbers. I'm like, we college guys and go to school in suits, we just look like money. But these guys with the trucks and they own businesses, they actually can make money a hell of a lot sooner than we can with little or less debt, and they own it because they got a skilled trade of some sort. If you're in corporate America, your ebb and flows go with the company. And you started to see more people start to get realistic after the 2008 the housing crisis. Because that's the first time it hit middle class people. You had people who had good middle class jobs that just went away. When I was in Dallas, I saw people from 75 to 120. Those jobs just left, and they didn't come back. And many of those guys went and started a landscaping company, became an HVAC technician, a plumber, roofer, something like that. And they're making money hands over fist, but they're not in a suit. They got a polo with their logo on right now, and those are very mean, a lot of them say. It's because of their title. I can't take you to the bar with Chris.
It's funny, too, because throughout you becoming successful at this, you've probably experienced this where you get a completely different level of attention from women because now you have followers, subscribers, people know who you are, and it's like your financial situation, I'm guessing, might not have changed that much in the last year, but the level of attention that I'm sure you're getting is completely different, and therein kind of lies with the whole issue with a lot of the choices that people are making, right?
We have no check marks by your name because I come from image and I understand the power of digital footprint. I want to say back in September, I had like 70,000 subscribers because I had been shadow banned because of my content. YouTube really wasn't as friendly to speaking about men's issues. So I come from the image and style side, and if I had just stayed over there and kept out of this, I would have had a different subscriber count. But I wanted to have a different conversation. YouTube also injected about $100 million into black content creators, and they said they weren't going to just support the rank and file PC messages. They were going to allow more things to be up there. So basically, they just kind of let it be. I started noticing my yellow limited starts becoming green. I'm like, what's going on?
Really?
Yeah, I got all the tools behind the scenes to make sure I stay in that ballpark. But when I went viral, the watch time goes up, and now I'm at 260. successful women, hot women. Hey, look, man, most people just want somebody that they can come home to. And I just acknowledge that fact. And we're just scratching the surface. But the thing is, I want to have this conversation in a wider format to where people can start having more realistic outcomes. Because what's really cool is when people say, I didn't like it, but now I'm getting a better outcome. I love it when you start to hear people say, I found this, I found that. Because that's what it's about. That's also part of your legacy, too. That's also part of their dash. So if I got to say it in a way that's going to grab your attention, because, come on, we have to have a certain amount of entertainment value. I had a very good friend behind me saying, I love your content, but you're dry as hell.
That's kind of why it's so good.
He's like, but this is back when I was still in my suit and I was making no jokes. He's like, come on. He's like, you're hilarious. He's like, when you're on, I was like, you're very corporate. He's like, man, relax, you're corny. I'm like, bet. So I was like, all right, let's see how it happens. And lo and behold, guess what? I became more relatable. Instead of looking like that goofy in the suit, you're like, all right, I may not want to dress like him, I don't do it, but I like what he's saying, bro.
Hey, I like the get the dog.
My dog.
Jigsaw. Okay,
Oh my God.
That was classic right there.
Oh man.
So you're from Oklahoma originally? Okay, so would you say that influences your perspective on this a bit? Because I feel like the issue of people not really being able to, link up and marry or whatever, that problem is more of a problem on the coast, in the big cities. I feel like in a small town, people still have a bit of that understanding that, linking up with somebody who's more on your level makes more sense. But I'm guessing that you're also sort of seeing that mentality seep into the smaller areas.
Yeah, see, I'm from Oklahoma City, and so that's Middle America, the Bible Belt. And I was raised in the church, baptized in fire. Then we went from Baptist to Christian, Church of God in Christ. That's some of the most fundamentalist, fire and brimstone, so that informs a part of that. Then I also come from a blue-collar factory family. Family was domestics that, salt of the earth, people. Then from there, I moved to Texas. I moved to Houston, Dallas, then to New York City. Then I go to a big city. And, I started to see an entirely different dating scenario. Bigger city, more options, more money. But what I'm starting to realize is when I get back to Oklahoma, they're even having these issues. So I'm like, why is this creeping into the middle of America? Why do you have women in Tulsa? This last week I had a woman in Little Rock.
On the same ideas, right?
Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana, states are statistically usually at the bottom for a lot of categories. And I'm like, man, you're in Little Rock, and you're in your mid-30s, and you want a man making $150,000. I'm like, what are you talking about? That's like 8 guys.
Right, especially there, making that much money is damn near impossible.
So, and I use a lot of facts, a lot of data, a lot of statistics, and I have a mathematical mind, so I can actually take that stuff and inject it into a conversation and make it make sense. Like I did an example one day where I said, you're roughly looking for less than, you got 7.5 million women looking for roughly less than 200,000 men. And that's just in our community. They're like, oh, I'm like, yeah. And what it does is it's starting to really crystallize. Do you really want that? Or do you just want to be safe? And that's what I find most women want. They think safety and security is coming in money. And what it really comes in is having that something that's unique between one man and one woman. There will always be an understanding of a relationship that no one else will understand but those two will, and it works for them. And that's why you get to 50 years. But we don't get that anymore. We're still trying to get these things, and hopefully that makes us last longer. This makes you look better on the regular.
I hear that. It's interesting because sometimes it feels like within hip hop or black entertainment or whatever that a lot of times they want, the media perhaps wants the liberal attitude, the leftist attitude to be sort of the default attitude. And then I think more often than not, it seems like it's somebody more along your lines who really is kind of the center of the conversation. Like the average person watching this kind of content probably falls in line a lot closer with your way of viewing the world versus the sort of myth that has been spun about everybody in that community wanting to hear sort of like woke propaganda all the time. And then somebody like you comes out and all of a sudden you get a huge fan base seemingly overnight. And it kind of is
crazy, right?
Yeah, and I mean, what do you think of that? Do you think that like
What I did is, I did a lot of work and research and polling and stuff behind the scenes. I kept asking myself, why is it that in the black community we can't seem to make families like we used to? We usually made it a rate of 80% in the height of segregation and Jim Crow and the worst parts of the racial Bible. We were made at a rate of 80%. We had churches and families and communities and all that stuff. But now, our numbers, we're like
We lost.
can't seem to get it
Lost
together.
in the sauce.
What's going on? And we were saying, well, it's the marital structure, the family court. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Other folks are doing this. Why can't we still do this? I asked a lot of questions. And one thing that used to keep coming up
That's
is
facts, bro.
this whole high value.
Too many black
high
people
value
out there.
idea.
And two, like what you say about women rather be a baby mama before a wife now. And I said, that's really part of the problem as well too. Is you can get sex and have a baby with a woman, and she's not going to prioritize getting married like women is first. You know what I mean? I feel like there'd be a lot more successful couples if somebody dealt with somebody and they demanded that they get married first and then have children and then do that. And it's like I got 2 kids and I got 2 baby mamas. It's just
Well, coming from the church, You know, if you were in the 60s and you got pregnant, they would send you from Oklahoma to Chicago, and I'm saying you came back with a sister. But now I see the same women going into the church, coming in with 2 kids by 2 different men, pregnant with another, but they sit on the front pew right here, and the pastor shouting them out. I'm like, we've taken away consequence, we've taken away judgment. And also, men have left the church because they're like, this is not right. So you have women being fed what they want to hear to keep them buying books, paying tithes, and all sorts of kind of stuff. But the men aren't in these places because the men say, I don't want this. You can do that, and you want to have children, that's fine, but I don't want to pay for another guy's kids. And now the women who find themselves in that position are like, well, wait a minute, this is cool 3 years ago. Not really what? Guys just couldn't say anything.
Guys will take penitentiary change.
When I started hearing, I don't want to mention the content thing, but I heard women saying, I don't want no man. But at some point, that will be me. Because it keeps going. Where does it stop? And no one can tell me. Let's just say he did all that to get you. Then when he goes away and you just get that, you stay down,
Bang, bang.
you gone.
Bang, bang.
Yes, it would be. Just how great it is to be able to go home at the end of your 9 to 5 and not have to be thinking about the business 24/7 like I am. Not to mention that having a 9 to 5 is, you know, I look at the podcast with us, it's helping every other area of his business. At some point, maybe he could start a completely separate business from what he's been able to.
Yeah.
One of the things that's going to piss me off is because the men are much more numerous. We have to get to the numbers. Cost benefit calculator.
I heard that.
That rabbit ain't gonna.
Sabe, o gawaí, you should keep on seeing.
We laugh because we understand.
What?
Because if I do that right now, I'm gone. Because there's no one coming to get my back. Men have to run these numbers. So when I find this women off to say, I just want to go out and get it. You don't understand that?
Why did?
And I've had one.
You were supposed to say who,
Some kind of pump.
and then there's the joke.
Yeah. That joke is actually serious. Someone did get possessed by a well, they say that. They said they keep on saying, oh, it's like a fancy.
You want me to go get this thing? Why? To prove to you what? And when I do that, and if I miss, are you going to help me back to health? Nurse me back to health? No. You're going to eat them berries and go find somebody else to go. No. And that's what they tell these men. I'm like, what are you telling the guy? You want to do fraud to do what? To get you $50,000 to do what? Just because I need it. For what? But it's because you've had this. And I hate to use hip hop and that stuff as a culprit because we gained a lot from hip hop.
I'm tired.
But there has been a market change from the message to the watches and the cars and this.